This meter is rated for DC milliamps and AC milliamps. Try and find a meter on the market that is rated for both AC and DC milliamps and look at the price tag and compare it to this. Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. For those of you that are new, my name is Luke, and today we're going to be going over all of the different product features of the handheld oscilloscope by Gochifix. Now, in full disclosure, they did send me this unit to do a review. If you found this video before you bought it, there's a 20% discount code down in the description, as well as I'll put it up here on the screen for you. This will be like a product review, tutorial, and then we're going to go really in depth. I'd like to do a lot of like the different submenus and settings for those that want to get more into the nitty gritty. A few quick things that they wanted me to bring up about their product. It's a 3-in-1 tool. You know, it's a 2-channel oscilloscope, a 6,000 count multimeter, and a signal generator. They're very proud about their fast 200 megasamples sampling for signal analysis. The waveform generator outputs a sine, square, and triangle wave. Something that they didn't mention is the signal generator and oscilloscope will operate simultaneously, which I thought is like the coolest part of this tool. 2,000 data sets and 200 waveforms that you can save. And then they have a 2,000 milliamp battery, which should last you up to 10 hours of use. So with all of that being said, please go ahead and check out the discount code and let's hop into the video. All right, before we jump into the signal generator settings and output and all that good stuff, I wanted to go over the leads that come with the product. You're gonna get these like signal generator, alligator clamp, BNC type set. You'll get a nice oscilloscope probe with a ×1 and ×10 attenuation. So make sure in your oscilloscope settings that your probe and the settings match each other so that you're getting consistent results. And then you're also gonna get a nice little set of multimeter leads. So go ahead, we'll fire this little guy up really quick. It'll be a little boot up screen, and then it's gonna default to your multimeter. And then to get to our signal generator, we just hit this AWG button right here. And there you go. Then we can see our generator out is right there. And then there's the 2 channels for our oscilloscope. The one thing about the generator setting is once you get to the generator setting, it starts outputting a signal, but it doesn't, like, how would you say, there's no display function like letting you know that the generator is on and outputting continuously. So that's something I would have liked to see. Once it's on, so just kind of be aware of that. And then we can go ahead and see our type. We can rotate through to triangle or sine. And then our frequency. I was messing around with this earlier. It's nice if you put in like a really high number that is beyond its capabilities. It doesn't error out. It'll just take you to the max number that it's able to produce for that type of wave, which I do actually really like. But we can just, and then I do like how it has the units of measurement over here, makes it easy. And then our peak to peak, we can adjust as well, up to 5 volts, down to 0 volts. We'll keep it on 3. And then duty cycle, you are not able to adjust. So just be aware of that. And then let's take a look at, this is kind of the default oscilloscope probe calibration settings. I'd say that's a pretty nice and clean square wave. And then we can see down here, we can verify our measurements. It's just slightly over 3 volts, coming in almost perfectly at 1K hertz. And then our plus and minus 1510, 1520, right around there. And then our square is nice and squared off. So I think that's a pretty clean signal. Let's go ahead and just cycle through some different voltages, different frequencies, and different square waves, and kind of cycle through everything, verify the output. There's our triangle wave. As my setup comes into its auto adjust, the peak to peak voltage has increased a little bit. It's closer to 3.3 volts peak to peak. Frequency still looks great. Let's go ahead and change the frequency. Let's do something low. Let's do 50 hertz. Okay. Frequency 49.9. Okay, lower frequency. Let's try 1. You know, it's always going to be the extremes of a meter that are going to really push its limits. That's a 1 hertz. I don't know what you would use a 1 hertz for, but it is brutal on that. Let's go really high. I think for triangle we can do 1 mega. We can. I think too, I'm also hitting the limitations of my own scope and its auto adjustment frequency, because if it's at 1 megahertz, I shouldn't see anything at a 500 millisecond division. There we go. 1 microsecond. Looks great. Let's do 5 volts peak to peak. That's a lot of switching. Looks great. Okay. And then to our sine wave. Let's go low again. We'll go like 25 hertz. 25 hertz, sine, 5 volt peak to peak. 1 microsecond, you're not going to see anything. Let's do like 200. Okay, it still looks great. 25 hertz. It's doing about 5.5 to 5.7 volts peak to peak. Pretty clean though. So I don't know about you guys. I think that's really impressive for a handheld unit. I mean, it's not like a full-on benchtop beefy guy like you would normally see. And the fact that it can do all of that while operating the oscilloscope at the same time, I think is just great. All right, let's go ahead and hop into the oscilloscope functionality. The first thing that the manufacturer would like you to do is to open up the waveform generator, output 1 kilohertz square wave, 3 volts peak to peak. And once you've selected that AWG button, we know it's outputting that signal. Then we can press the channel 1 to our oscope, and we can check our oscilloscope probe for calibration. And this is also a way to verify that your square wave output is working. We can go ahead and hit auto. This was a little confusing for me at first. It kind of looks like one big button to press. It's 2 separate ones, and that made me feel kind of silly. So we can just hit the auto button, so the bottom part, and it will auto adjust. And then we can use the side to side and up and down buttons to get a closer look at our square wave and make sure that it's nice and square. So if you wanted to, I mean, you could really go through and just switch back and forth between different settings on the output of the generator, hop back over to your scope, hit auto, not menu, hit auto, and then verify. So it's a way you can kind of like self-check and self-verify that the waveform generator is outputting properly and that your oscilloscope is reading properly, all without any external equipment, which I really like. And then of course, that's going to be really handy for troubleshooting as you're outputting some kind of square wave to something, and then you're taking measurements with your oscilloscope. So the fact that it does it both at the same time, I just think is so great. I guess I'm really just jealous because my setup is not able to do that, and it can be really frustrating when I'm trying to do some really in-depth troubleshooting. I think from here on out though, I'm going to use my own signal generator to just make it easier. Something I do appreciate that they did put together for you is like a quick start user manual for you. I think a lot of product manufacturers don't realize like how excited we can be to use their product, and we want to start using it as quickly as possible. So they put together a quick little guide for you, and it gives you a little bit of layout of the land so you don't have to go through and dig through the normal owner's manual. If you're getting something like this, you're probably just looking to get into oscilloscopes, and this is a really affordable way to get into that kind of the next tier of your, electrical education and troubleshooting capabilities. Can really increase the abilities of your workbench. It's a great way to verify, say you're getting into like Arduino programming. If you want to verify your output signal before you hook it up to something to make sure you're not going to barbecue anything. But I started out with a handheld model like this. The thing that I've noticed about this model that I think is a great improvement that needs to be touched on is the auto functionality. I haven't had this much luck utilizing an auto button on a handheld unit like this really ever. I guess the first thing that we should kind of just get out of the way is you're probably wondering, can we at least see what it looks like when both channels of the scope are being utilized? So I want two different signals. So I'm going to use one of the signals from the output generator and then my own signal. And then we can go to channel 1. Channel 1 is going to be a green trace. And then I should be able to select channel 2 and we can auto. And now it's got some really funky stuff going on because it's trying to read different frequencies at different levels. Let's try to put them both at the same frequency and see if that is helpful. And let's go back to our scope, auto. Okay, so now both of our signals are at a 1 kHz. And we could see now our trigger function is having a lot better time trying to do this. But I just wanted to show you kind of what it looked like and how to navigate it. We can always turn off each channel individually. So now I'm just displaying channel 2. Turn channel 1 back on. Now it's just channel 1. So I'm going to go ahead and restart it. I just wanted to show you what it looked like when we had both channels and the waveform generator going on all at the same time, which is a lot to process. And you saw that it could handle that pretty well. That's a lot to ask of, again, a handheld unit. Let's kind of walk you through what are the main things that you're going to be looking at. The first kind of submenu that we can go into is if we just press for the channel that we have activated, and we've got our coupling, so we can do AC or DC coupling or ground. Then we have our probe attenuation, so we can do 1-to-1 or we can do 10-to-1. That's what I had mentioned before on your probe here, the ×1 or the ×10. You can adjust it to match that probe so it knows what setting that it's on. Then we have a bandwidth limit. The bandwidth limit, I think it's for 20 megahertz is the bandwidth limit. Then we can go over to the next page, position, vertical and horizontal resets. So that's there. Our next kind of main menu available to us is our trigger. We can do which channel we want our trigger to be for. So kind of how I had before, we had two different frequencies going back and forth, and so it was too much for the scope to kind of figure out what was what and who was who. You could adjust your trigger to be for channel 1 or for channel 2. We can do slope rising or falling. It also has like a little diagram up here to indicate if it's for rise or for fall. We have auto and a reset. And then the last kind of submenu that we have available for our oscilloscope is if we select waveform, we can go to our saved waveform menu. Volt, this is going to be like if we want to live monitor volts peak to peak, volts peak, volts max, volts min, volts average, or volts RMS. Let's do volts average. Then we can get out of here. And then we'll have our average displayed there. So what's that saying? 1.6. I will say the display in person is a lot nicer than how it's showing up on my camera. I just film these videos on my phone, okay? The display, I know it looks kind of blown out, and I'm not doing the display the justice that it deserves. We can also go into time, and that'll give us, you know, frequency, period, width, plus, width minus, duty plus, and duty minus. Those are things that we want to monitor. We also have our time scaling down here. We're in 500 microseconds. And then this is our scaling, 2-volt scaling. What does that mean, you might be wondering? Is it says 2 volts here, so every square represents 2 volts. So we can get kind of just a glance. We don't need to like get an official measurement. We can invert our wave if we want to. Now, AI cursor. This is one setting that I wasn't able to get to work properly, and I don't know what's going on, but your cursor, you would be able to move around to like a specific point and make a measurement. But those are kind of more of your sub-menus. And then up here is like, you know, a mini preview of what the wave looks like if you were pulled back a bit more. And then we have this big utility button here. And that's going to be, you can turn off this beeping sound if it's just driving you absolutely insane. And then you can do your backlight adjustment. So I have my backlight on 5. Here's what it looks like at a 3. And then at a 1. Ooh, it actually looks way better at a 1 on camera. Maybe we'll leave it there. Yeah, that does look way better. Let's see, so we covered F1 to F4 is for navigating the menus. AWG is for your sine wave generator, went through channel 1, channel 2, utility, trigger, menu, auto. Then we do have save. You can press save successfully, and then we can go to, what is it? Menu, waveform. There's the waveform that we just saved, and I can click on it. There's a little picture of it. It shows us some information about it. Save it for later. If I press down, I can do previous to my previous waveform. My next, it's showing me I'm at 2 out of 2. And then I can do back. That helps me back out of there, back to the oscilloscope menu. I can stop or play if I want to, which is nice. I stop, so if I'm seeing something that I want to take a better look at, I can hit stop. And then I can go through and I can make adjustments to my wave, to my scaling, and get a really clear picture. Let's see, say I want to see that slope in a lot of detail on my square wave. Well, now I can do that. Zoom in really far, get it really dramatic. So there's that. So for those of you that haven't used like chunky handheld multi-tool like this before, my favorite part is the multimeter. I love having a big, nice display for the multimeter with a big digital screen for a benchtop setup. It's the best. If you haven't done it yet, you gotta try it. It's the only way to fly. You know what I mean? Let's go over a couple things. For navigating the multimeter, these 3 buttons here are your 3 different like main kind of multimeter function navigations. It will default to this volts, duty cycle, hertz, AC, DC button down here. And then you'll use the F keys to cycle through like the sub menu. Something that I really like is it's an auto, and then this number down here is like the count, or think of it like the range. I can also take it out of auto range, and if I press the auto button, that works as my range button. And you can see that number changing there as I go through. Okay, it's saying 1000 volts DC I'm maxed out on. And then if I hold down the auto button, it'll bring it back to its auto functionality. Let's see, there's also data. Ooh, that's nice. There's data, What else in the menu? There's a calibrate. Unplug the USB and probe, then press enter to continue. Okay, that should be a way to like basically zero out your meter. And then something to take note of too that I really like that they're doing is these 4 circles up here represent your 4 ports down here on the bottom, okay? And so as you cycle through your different tests, it's going to have different ports illuminated to help set you up for success, to make sure that you're plugged into the right ports. Like, see how right now I've got my red lead plugged into the COM port. Rookie mistake, but there we go. Corrected before we took any measurements. So that's going to set you up to let you know, okay, for everything we're doing in here, we're going to be utilizing these 2 ports. Like if we go to our current measurement section, it's saying, okay, to measure current, we need to switch over to these 2 ports. Like that, there you go. Okay, and then for like, that's for milliamps, and then for like our normal amperage, okay, saying that port and that port. So something to be mindful of, like if you're not too comfortable with the multimeter section or anything like that, or even if you are, it's just a good reminder while you're cycling through different tests. It can be really easy to forget to switch your leads over to the proper ports. So I like that that's highlighted nice and big up there at the top. And I like that all these little subsections down here are really easy to get to. Let's just start with something simple. Let's start going through some voltage stuff. Let's just take a measurement of a little battery. See how it looks. Okay, 9.43 volts DC. And I like that it's telling you, okay, we're in auto. And for the range, it's maxed out at 60 before it has to go to the next setting up, if that makes sense. So like right now we're reading 9.43 volts and it's maxed out at 60. If it had to go through the 600 setting, we would lose this hundredths place and only be reading up to the tenths, if that kind of makes sense. So it's nice that it's giving you all that information. A normal multimeter wouldn't be doing that. And then we can obviously let's take an AC voltage measurement. Shouldn't have to change ports or anything like that. Just open these little windows, little doors, especially when we're not in the right setting. There we go. Okay, so we're reading 120 volts AC. And notice how since it's on the 600 setting, we've lost that hundredths place. Now we're only reading to the tenths. And we're in the triple digits over here. And then we should be able to, while we're in here, let's go to hertz. Okay, I know it's a 60 hertz AC signal. For duty cycle, I always like to do this little meter right here. It's a little square wave. And we can go to duty cycle. 50% duty cycle. Very cool. Let's go on to the next section. That's going to be resistance. Is what it defaults to. Okay, 1 mega ohm. Let's go small. See how it works. Okay, took a little bit to get there. 68. I'm going to be just speeding through some of these tests really quick. I've got a bunch more videos on how to do all these tests. It would help if I was in the diode setting to make a diode measurement. Cool. It'll light that up, shows us the forward voltage. Let's go over to, this will be your continuity. Nice loud chirp there. Let's do a capacitance. Auto range to microfarads, 634 microfarads. Very nice. Cool, let's go over to current. The last thing about this meter that I want you all to think about is this meter is rated for DC milliamps and AC milliamps. Try and find a meter on the market that is rated for both AC and DC milliamps and look at the price tag and compare it to this. That's where you're really going to get your most bang for the buck. If those current measurements are important to you, which they are for most of us, needing both AC and DC current measurement capabilities. Okay, we're in the milliamps section. We're in auto ranging. We've got a power source. Let's take it for a little spin. Okay, so this is like, I want to say 120 microamps. So the fact that it's picking that up at all, that's probably the smallest that it'll go to range-wise. So it's not rated for microamps, but it is showing. So I know it shows up there. It's like 110 microamps is what it's actually showing. Show something a little bit bigger. Yeah, this is like 1200 microamps. 12 milliamps. And 36 milliamps. Great. I'll skip the AC milliamp. Well, should we do an AC milliamp? I mean, I guess I could. We'll do it just to show it, just to verify. How about that? Just to give us the warm and the fuzzy. Okay, I'm gonna drop this AC voltage down to 12 volts. It is important to remember. Let's go ahead and verify our AC voltage power source with the lead in the proper port. Otherwise, you do have a fuse in there. Okay, we're a little shy. It's probably about as close as I'll get it. 12.48 volts AC. We'll just do this to our neutral. I'll use this as our hot. Proper ports. Let's get to proper settings. AC, milliamps, and then verify. We'll do kind of an A and B test compared to what we got earlier. It's not going to be exactly the same, but it should be very close. Helps if we have a breaker on. Wow, okay. That's what we were seeing on that one before. Yeah, 1200 microamps. 12 milliamps. And then what was this one? 32 or 36? I can't remember. Okay, 38 milliamps. Yeah, that's awesome. So to have that milliamp AC and DC current rating, dude, that is money on this side. And then we're just gonna verify DC current. DC current will go over to here. It's 10 amps max. Cool. Right on the money. I'm telling you, for a benchtop, if you're going to do a benchtop multimeter, this is what you want because it's so clear. I feel like it makes doing your measurements so much more fun. And two, with the amount of capability, I mean, it's got everything you need. Anyways, if you're new to electrical testing, you're an intermediate, you're looking for different products, you're looking at different stuff, go check out the channel. I've got a whole bunch of different stuff on here. That's the Gochifix Handheld Oscilloscope 3-in-1 multi-tool. I gotta say, I do really like it. It's a great price on it. Go check out that discount code and link down in the description, and I'll catch you on the next one.